Welcome to another exciting edition of the Black and Gold Hour podcast. It's your host, Merv, and this is the hottest and newest podcast for New Orleans Saints news, NFL news. We're talking sports 24/7 here. And today I have a special guest. I mean, honestly, he's not even a guest. He's a good friend, man. I talk to this guy daily, weekly, whatever it is. I got my guy again, an analyst, podcaster, all of the above. Michael Balko, how are you, man?
What's up? Happy to be on again, my brother. Let's just chop it up about some Saints news real quick.
Man, and I got to congratulate you, man, for getting married, man.
I appreciate it. Happy wife, happy life to all you married folks out there.
Yeah, that's what they tell me. But I'm glad to have you on today. So, man, it's a lot going on. It's a lot to talk about with the New Orleans Saints, with the NFL. And I kind of want to just jump right into the big news for the week. The NFL is opening up. The owners have finally, brought to the attention a 17-game schedule. Now that adds an extra away game for the New Orleans Saints. And I want to hear your opinion. Do you think it'll help or harm the New Orleans Saints going into 2021?
Here's the way I'm looking at it. If your team's good enough by like week 15, just use it the same way you used it. In my eyes, like my first initial thing about it was like, sure, they're adding an extra game, and we already know like Alvin Kamara's opinions on it, and most of the NFL players' opinions on it is like, oh damn, that stinks. You know what I mean? Like for their bodies and well-being and all that stuff. So obviously that stinks for them, but if your team's good enough, like if the Saints are good enough and we're on top of the division, we already got it clinched the whole 9 yards, just use it as an extra bye week. Consider it like a wild card bye week, in the playoffs. So you get 2 weeks to heal up instead of just 1 week to heal up, sit your guys week 16, week 17, use 2 weeks, gear up for that playoff run, and you're golden. You know what I mean? Especially since like the Saints have been having like injuries towards the end of the season, like that extra week could kind of come in clutch and help and heal those. So if anything, just kind of play the way you normally played and just use that as like that extra cushion week. Obviously it's going to be a little bit more grueling for the teams who need to play that last week of the season to get into the playoffs, which I mean, we could see the Saints doing. It's obviously a transition year. It's hard to predict what the Saints are going to look like coming up, but if the Saints do have to play with it, I understand where the frustration comes from. Especially since there's still only one bye week. I think if the NFL maybe implemented a second bye week or something, or something along the lines of that, or they just scheduled better, got rid of Thursday night football, something along the lines of that would be a lot better. But yeah, I think 17 weeks, obviously from the fan point of view, is very, very good. Right. We want longer football seasons. It seems like it goes by way too quick. But it also kind of just gives dudes who are on the bubble more opportunities to prove. It's like the NFL is kind of creating more jobs for these dudes. So, you got 17 weeks in a season, that's going to make, more job openings for these dudes. So, like adding extra offensive linemen is going to come in clutch because, you're going to want to stock up on like positions that are going to be beaten up every single time like you're touching the ball. You know what I mean? So like stocking up on O-line, stocking up on D-line, linebackers, running back, stuff like that's going to be very, very, very important. So I think it's just a matter of like how well your team strategizes. Like it's only one extra week, but like that week means a lot, especially for dudes like Cam Jordan and Demario Davis who have never missed a game in their careers. So it's going to be interesting to see how teams play this.
Well, I like how you talk about players on the bubble because it's gonna be one less preseason game. So I also want to talk about how it'll distort certain records. Records that have been going on in the NFL for a long time. So it's definitely something to think about. And, there were times where the NFL had 12 games, then it went to 16 games, and it's been 16 games for the last 40 years. So now going to 17 games, that's going to kind of skew the numbers a lot. But I mean, I like how you talk about it being a transition year for the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints have recently signed Alex Armand and Nick Vannett, a fullback and a tight end. And I talked about last week how it shows the signs of the New Orleans Saints going to a run team. You know, getting people who are good at run blocking can really help Jameis Winston or whoever the Saints quarterback will be next year. And I want to ask you, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like that's a sign of change to come for the New Orleans Saints offense?
Yeah, in a certain sense. You know, obviously we all know Jameis Winston can throw the ball, take the top off of all the defenses. We saw that in the playoff game. We saw it in the couple snaps he had against the 49ers as well. So we know he has that capabilities, but it's more or less, I feel like, just kind of stocking up just in case things don't go as planned. You know we have a great running back in Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray locked up. So I think it more or less is just kind of them stockpiling talent in an area that they know they have stability in, you know what I mean? But it's, Jameis Winston, there's a reason they only signed him to another 1-year deal. It's a 1-year prove it deal to like literally the definition of a 1-year prove it deal. So, I mean, like you're getting a prove it deal to like go out here and be the starting quarterback for a Super Bowl contending team, I might add, with all the talent in the world to help you get the job done. So if you can't succeed with that, I mean, it's really going to hurt him. So I think he's going to go out there and ball out. Obviously, I'm a big Jameis fan. I'm a big Florida State fan. So, I've been pulling for Jameis basically my whole life. So, it's obviously very good to see Jameis Winston under center for the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, to answer your question, once again, I think it's definitely just to like kind of stock up talent in an area where we know we're already good, just in case Jameis doesn't live up to all the hype.
Yeah, and I've been a big proponent of Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray taking the show, being the lead horses on the offense. But we know Sean Payton and we know what Jameis Winston can do. And as we talk about Jameis Winston, I want to talk about kind of the emotional, information he gave us about his relationship with Drew Brees and how Drew Brees has encouraged him and motivated him in his NFL journey. And I kind of wanted to talk about and hear your reaction about Jameis Winston's response about Drew Brees.
Yeah, super emotional. And it's, obviously when you don't know Drew Brees as a person, it's hard to get as emotional. But I think every Saints fan, especially lifelong Saints fans, kind of felt the same emotion Jameis did to a certain extent. I know we've kind of been fed up with Drew Brees over the past couple of years. But, I mean, you can't think about Drew Brees and not think about everything he's done for not just the Saints football team, but the city of New Orleans as a whole. I mean, I'm not even from New Orleans. You're not from New Orleans. And we know the impact he's had on New Orleans. And that just goes to show the impact he's had on New Orleans. I know I've said that like 4 times, but it's crazy. But yeah, I understand where he's coming from because you have to think about it in Jameis Winston's point of view. He signed a 1-year deal, took literally the league minimum that you can make as a quarterback to learn behind Drew Brees. And he learned enough and got enough tips and advice from Drew Brees to be the most highly coveted free agent quarterback this year, hands down. I mean, obviously we knew he was pretty much going to re-sign with the Saints the entire time. He made that evident from the get-go, but there's no doubt about it that if he wanted to test his value in the free agent market, he would be getting $15, $16, $20 million right now to be a starting quarterback for another team. And I mean, he signed a cheaper deal to come back with us. I mean, he wants to really be that successor to Drew Brees. And so, obviously, they had a very, very, very tight relationship, as Drew Brees always has with his backup quarterbacks. So yeah, I can definitely understand why he got emotional talking about Drew Brees, especially when, during Drew Brees' final moments in the playoffs, he used those moments instead of like sitting on the bench, having his own moment or whatever, to talk to Jameis Winston, say, here you go, young bull, it's yours now.
Yeah, and me and you, we've been, behind Jameis Winston since the beginning of last season, and we talked about how he could be the future. But I think Who Dat Nation is officially behind Jameis Winston. I've seen people who were riding Taysom Hill, who were riding anything else other than Jameis Winston, and now they're behind him based off of his reaction and his response and his motivation behind being successful next year. So I kind of want to talk to you now about next year. And I want to talk about the moves the New Orleans Saints have made over the offseason. We've had to, let go of some prominent pieces such as Trey Hendrickson. We had to let go of, Quan Alexander and the biggest one, the one that really caught my attention, Janoris Jenkins. So now I want to ask you, and it's crazy because we were going to do a mock draft and we're still going to do that on your show, but so much has changed. So I want to ask you, what is the New Orleans Saints' biggest offseason concern as of today?
Yeah, and I know when you texted me, you told me I had to pick one, so I narrowed it down to one for you, and I said cornerback. Cornerback is obviously the biggest need for the Saints right now. I want to say corner and linebacker obviously are the two most staggering needs because those are the positions where we budget cut quite a bit. But, I think we're locked up on DN pretty well, but cornerback, I'd say, is the biggest need. We know, like you said, we lost Janoris Jenkins. That's a starting cornerback and a very good starting cornerback at that. I mean, he got a lot of hate for a couple not so clutch holding penalties that seemed like the wrong times, but he was a very, very effective starting cornerback for us. Probably the most effective second cornerback we've had in years. We've always had like that one good corner, but we haven't had that good corner duo until the past couple years when we had Janoris Jenkins. So we lost him, and obviously, that's very upsetting, but that's where, it's going to be nice to have that 28th pick. I think it's 28th pick. I'm pretty sure it's 28th pick. I'm going with 28. That 28th overall, right. That 28th overall pick to pick up one of these young corners. And there's a lot of good corners in this year's draft. I think a guy like Greg Newsome is certainly in the realm of possibility out of Northwestern. Dude gave up 98 total yards on pass coverages in the entire 2020 season. That's insane to think about. And I mean, he completely held teams like Ohio State, Illinois, and Michigan State, those three teams, to 0 yards receiving. 0. Like, those are like top tier teams in college football. He held them to 0 yards receiving. Teams were scared to even throw his way. So Greg Newsome, if he's available, obviously should be the pick there. But yeah, I mean, right now we have Marshon Lattimore and then a whole lot of nothing. I mean, we got PJ Williams, Patrick Robinson, and Keith Washington after that. So we're looking pretty slim, my guy. So we definitely we got to get someone at corner. I mean, linebacker's not looking great, but at least we got Demario Davis. We got Zach Bond coming into his second year. We got Caden Ellis, who the team's high on. So at least we got something there. Corner's got to be the move, though.
Yeah, corner's definitely got to be the move. When I think about Janoris Jenkins, I think about consistency. He did give up some penalties over the course of the season, but overall he held it down. And I think, J.C. Horn, he won't be available. He's top 10, top 15 type pick. Mm-hmm. And I think that, a lot of people are talking about the free agent route. I did want to ask you, how do you feel about AJ Bouye? He hasn't been picked up yet in free agency. And what do you think he could do if he played for the Saints?
AJ Bouye, man, that's kind of a curveball. No, I like AJ Bouye. He's a good veteran corner. I could see the Saints picking up a veteran corner from somewhere. I know we had like TJ Carey or something like that in the building not too long ago. So they're obviously still looking. They're going to look for a budget corner. I'm sure of it. AJ Bouye, though, I'm not sure. I mean, if he even would make the roster, to be honest with you. I feel like if they signed a guy like AJ Bouye, it could be to compete in training camp just to see where the Saints are at. And then he could be a guy who gets released. Patrick Robinson played well in a limited role last year. PJ Williams is an effective, backup corner. He held his own when he got playing time last year. And the team's really high on Keith Washington. They like the upside he has. So, bringing in a guy like AJ Bouye could very well be similar to what we saw with Champ Bailey and Brandon Browner, kind of, just kind of a lower tier roster dude. Not Brandon Browner. I mean, Brandon Browner is just awful, but he's good. I mean, he'd be an effective guy. He'd be a good signing, but I don't know if he'd be willing to sign for cheap for the Saints.
Right. And I'm kind of stuck as a fan between going to the draft or feeling like the Saints are so close and they just need a strong, consistent veteran play like we got in Janoris Jenkins. So, I mean, like you said, some of these veterans won't come in cheap and the Saints don't have a lot of money to spend this offseason. So the draft may be the route. But let's switch to the other side of the ball. Let's talk about the offense. Let's talk about the receiver group and how they've been inconsistent over the years outside of Michael Thomas, who actually had a down year last year. So I want to ask you, do we need to add something to the receiver group, or do you think this group will step up in 2021?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to add some help to the receiving room for sure. I do like a lot of the talent that we do have at the receiver unit. I think we have a lot of underrated talent and a lot of untapped potential which is a good and bad thing. You know, I think it's good that we have Michael Thomas as kind of like that front runner at receiver. And I mean, a lot of people dog on Traquan Smith, but I think he's a very effective number 2 or number 3 receiver. I really like the potential we have in Marquez Callaway. I really like Deontay Harris. And I mean, if the Saints don't address the receiver position, I think it's kind of going to force the Saints and Sean Payton to use Deontay Harris in a more useful Tyreek Hill type of role, which is obviously very nice. But yeah, I do think, you know, if this receiver class is stacked, just like it was last year, not as quite as stacked, but it's still stacked. You know, there's some good talent late in the draft. I don't think we need to go first round or second round on it. I think we need to focus out on corner and linebacker, but you know, like in the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, somewhere there's some great talent. You know, Sage Surratt from Wake Forest, dog of a receiver. His senior year of high school, he had like almost 200 catches for like 2,500 yards and 23 tutties. And then he followed that up at Wake Forest and played very well there too. Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn's considered the fastest player in college football this past year. You know, a speedy dude who can take the top off defenses just like Emmanuel Sanders could. So he could be a very good option. Actually, that's kind of my pro comparison for Anthony Schwartz too in the film I've watched of him. I think Emmanuel Sanders is an effective kind of player that he reminds me of, you know what I mean? So those are a couple late round guys that we could look out for as far as the Saints looking to pick deep in the draft.
Okay, so as I kind of think about the receiver group, I want to talk about Deontay Harris, and if he had stayed in that divisional round game against the Bucs, story could be different for the season. I mean, he was single-handedly, you know, giving the Bucs all that they can handle, and he unfortunately got injured. And I definitely want to see his role expand. And I think Kudat Nation in general is very excited about Adam Troutman, and you're seeing what he can do. His footwork, his quickness, his high IQ for such an early career is very promising. So let's kind of talk about something else. Let's switch topics here, and let's get to the news from early last week. Let's talk about Marshon Lattimore. Now, you know, we keep it positive here on the Black and Gold Hour, but Marshon Lattimore recently got in some trouble in Cleveland, Ohio. And I want to ask you about Marshon Lattimore, the incident, how you feel about it, and how you think the New Orleans Saints front office feels about it when it comes to the extension talk with Marshon Lattimore, as well as his kind of inconsistent performance over the last 2 years. Tell me about how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously don't want to see your number 1 cornerback getting locked up in the offseason, that's for sure. I mean, his mugshot was not a pretty one either. I mean, he had the mask down, everything, bro. It was just not 2021.
Braids was not crispy, not at all.
Nah, bro, he was looking musty. But hey, on a serious note though, you don't want to see your lockdown cornerback getting locked up. That's for sure. It's just, you know, it's just unsettling because we've seen this happen in the past with guys like Junior Gillette. We've seen it happen with so many other Saints players, and we saw how that ended up turning out, which very soon after they weren't on the team for long. You know what I mean? Obviously, we don't know all the details yet, but it doesn't look too serious for Marshon. I mean, he did get locked up and he did have to post a $5,000 bond, so it was obviously serious enough for him to go to jail. But we don't know how serious it quite is at this point. I say quite a lot, bro.
It's good.
But yeah, we just don't know what it's looking like right now as far as like how he's going to be for the season and the whole 9 yards there. Hopefully it does not affect his game status for week 1, because obviously we need him, desperately need him. But in terms of him being extended, I think a lot of it's just going to depend on what ends up happening with this charge. If it ends up being that he has to serve some sort of jail time, or if it actually is like a legitimate charge where like he's going to have to like do something, you know what I mean? Then, I mean, which athletes get away with all the time, but you know what I mean? But it's just like, if he actually does end up having to serve some time or whatever the case may be, or it is serious enough to where the Saints are like, hey man, we can't tolerate this, then obviously he's not going to be extended, which stinks, you know, which means we really got to bank on getting a good, solid first-round corner this year, and then maybe even end up having to sign AJ Boye too. I think this arrest is kind of clutch in a certain way, because there were rumors that he was going to hold out this offseason until he got that new deal. So I don't think he can really afford to hold out now. I mean, obviously not financially. He can definitely afford to hold out financially. I'm just saying, like, in terms of proving his worth and proving that he can, cash in on that big contract from the Saints, I don't think he's going to hold out following an arrest. So, I mean, that's good. But yeah, I mean, you just don't want to see your star cornerback getting locked up. That's the whole kind of gist of the story here.
Right. And like you said, it is kind of clutch from a front office standpoint, because I think they are a little unsure about Marshon Lattimore. We've seen his highs be as high as it can get, but you see his lows, and they're usually against competition that you think Marshon Lattimore should be able to handle. And us as Saints fans, we're always shocked and just appalled at the fact that he might let like a free agent, undrafted free agent, just have a way with him on a Sunday, and then he'll go lock up Julio or lock up Mike Evans as he normally does. So it's one of those situations where the front office may look at this as a blessing in disguise, and Marshon Lattimore still has things to prove on and off the field. But I kind of want to ask you this last question of the day. Recently today, the list of opponents for the New Orleans Saints have dropped, and it's pandemonium. It's news. Like, we're looking at it and we're thinking about, okay, how many wins can the Saints get? We don't know the order of the scheduling, but we know who they'll play. So I want to ask you, what matchups are you most excited about going into next season?
Oh, man, there are so many good matchups. And honestly, I think the Saints are looking pretty good in terms of those matchups from what I've seen so far. Obviously, the draft hasn't happened yet, so we don't know the full rosters, but I saw some teams on there that I'm excited to just beat by like 50 real quick. But on a more serious note, I'm definitely looking forward to Saints versus Bills. That's the home game I'm looking forward to the Saints playing. Last time we played the Bills, we whooped them, bro. It was like 53-14 or something like that. So I'm excited. Two really good defenses going at it. Two up and coming quarterbacks going at it. Josh Allen, Jameis Winston. So that's going to be super exciting to watch. And then for a Saints road game, I'm looking forward to a Saints versus Pats. I live in a Patriots household, bro. The wife's a Patriots fan. Her fam's Patriots fan. So, I'm going to be the odd man out in the house for that week. So you already know I got to look forward to the Saints putting a whooping on them real fast.
Man, and I remember that Bills game you talked about. That was the game Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara just ran all over the Bills, man. Yeah. That's when I knew that this Saints squad that we had was real. I was like, okay, that's the game. So the matchup that I'm really excited about are kind of games where revenge games for the Tampa Bay Bucks. We need that win. We need to get both of them. And then the Green Bay Packers as well. I think the New Orleans Saints kind of let those games slip away last season. And I definitely think they have something to prove. And regardless of Jameis's quarterback or whoever's the quarterback, I think the New Orleans Saints will have a bone to pick with those two teams. But I think it's so much going on, and the offseason is still early, and there's so much that can happen, and the draft is coming up. But I think the New Orleans Saints will be okay. I think, being all in for the last 4 years kind of put the Saints in this position. But I think if Jameis and Sean Payton can figure it out, the Saints can still ease into the playoffs, and it's an extra spot in the playoffs. I still think they'll be competitors and contenders within the NFC. But I really appreciate you for coming on today, man.
Yes, sir. Of course, always, anytime.
Man, and this is the part of the show that I like. This is the Murr Speak segment where I kind of give some encouragement, and I'm actually gonna attribute the encouragement to my guy Mike Balko. Let me do a little story time. So when I first met Mike, he was encouraging me to write and kind of get into writing and being a true student of the game and just learning how to write articles. And I was like, nah, man, I'm not going to do it, man. I'm not ready for that. And then he came back maybe about 3 or 4 months later and was like, man, how you feel about it? And I was still uneasy. But then I decided to do it. And honestly, writing has been great, man. It's really, helped me hone my skills as a podcaster and as a writer, and I'm just getting better and better and better. So the advice for today, the Murr Speak segment, is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable with writing, but now the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. And I want to thank my boy Balko for giving me the encouragement to do that, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And your article's been popping, bro. They're good. Yeah. My man's been on that grind. Every time he's dropping one, bro, I'm just like before I even see who writes it, like I get the apps and the notifications and all that. And I'm like, oh, this article about to be a banger. And every time I click on it, it's my boy Merv. So, hey, I'm proud of you, bro. You keep grinding.
Man, I'm trying to get like you, man. This guy's pushing out like 50 a week, man. I'm trying to get like you, bro. But man, I really appreciate it, man. And that's kind of my advice for this week, man. And I really appreciate you for coming on the show, man. But thank you guys for listening to the Black and Gold Hour podcast. It's been a great episode. We're going to see what's next for the New Orleans Saints. But you guys be safe. Have a good day. Peace.
Woo!